You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Horror Ramblings Podcast. I may be Vincent Price, but I doubt it. In fact, no. I'm your host, Stephen White, and as always, with me is Lester Blosser.
Hello.
It wasn't my best Price, Vincent Price. I was trying, pulling quickly from my head. It was just like, that's what I got.
He's a hard one to do, anyways. I mean,
little bit.
He was so iconic.
Oh,
Let's be real.
I mean, I had another one I was going to do, and then I thought, no, I'm going to save that one. I'm going to hang on to that one for just a moment, because it's going to be a deeper cut for some people, and then other people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. So I'm going to hang on to that one for a little bit.
Fun fact about Vincent Price real quick before we get into the show. So a lot of people know that he was in the movie Edward Scissorhands as the inventor. Very limited role. They actually had a much larger role written for him, but his health was declining so much that they couldn't do it. So it would have been interesting to see what kind of direction the film would have taken, because I guess at the end of the movie that they originally had, Edward would have actually gotten his normal hands. So
Okay.
might have been an interesting take on it. It's a shame he's gone, because I freaking love Vincent Price, and if you ever get to watch old clips of him interacting with Elvira, he loved Elvira.
I bet.
Who doesn't, though?
Yeah. She's definitely one of those that I would love to meet before they're gone. Not that I think she's going anywhere anytime soon, but I don't know when I have had an opportunity to see Elvira. I feel like it's one of those moments that I would take advantage of if I ever saw her nearby. Like, I knew she was going to be in town. I'm going to make the trip.
Yeah, she is probably the sweetest lady to meet. We met her at one of the conventions, and I was bummed out about it because the first day that she's there, she does full Elvira makeup and she does photo shoots, and we didn't make it in enough time. So I'm a little salty about that one, but we still got to meet her, and she's hilarious. She's a very charming woman. She's so soft-spoken. Like, I don't think a lot of people know that about her, because you see her play Elvira now, and the persona of Elvira, she's so loud. She's so just out there. It's fantastic. But to meet Cassandra Peterson, she's a very soft-spoken, just very gentle woman. And it's a little misleading, but she's so sweet that you don't even really think about it. So
Sure. No, I'd definitely love to meet her.
Which, that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. I know we need to give some shout-outs today. At least I know that there's somebody that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But Elvira, it does sort of personify what we are talking about today. You know, she has withstood the test of time. She is a horror final girl, if you really think about it, and we are going to be talking about final girls today. But before we get into that, I do need to give a shout out. I have to find him on our Twitter, because I'm terrible with remembering Twitter names and everything. But we do have, is it Deva?
Yeah, Deva.
Yeah. That last name? Palladion? I totally butchered that.
Deva, you're going to have to tell us how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
I don't want to attempt it. I've never tried, to be honest.
But I do need to give you a shout out. You did get the film right that I could not remember last week. So I have to give you a shout out there. And you gave me a great idea for the show. We're going to do a drinking game now. So when you listen to Horror Ramblings, hold you a glass of whatever your favorite alcoholic beverage is, and take a drink every time I mention Nightmare on Elm Street, Robert Englund, or Freddy Krueger, which that's 3 right there, dude, if you're listening. So, but no, I wanted to give him a shout out real quick, because he's really good at communicating on Twitter, and we love to hear from people. And you know, he definitely has been giving us a lot of notifications lately, and I appreciate it. So.
Oh yeah, he's Deva is actually a frequent, I'll say, contributor because I feel like in some ways he really is. He's kind of become part of Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo. Anytime we can't think of anything, we're just like, ask Dava, and then we call out to Dava, and then eventually we get our answer somewhere on the internet. We actually used to do it on, or he just used to respond on Twitter, but now, as kind of incentive, it's just like, hey, if you want to come find out what Dava's got to say about something, you come over to the Discord page, trying to lure more people in over there, and then he's got his own little space.
Yeah.
So you can find out anything he's got to say about anything right there in his own little spot.
Yeah, I was jumping around in the Discord the other day, kind of looking. I'm not super familiar with Discord compared to other social media, and I saw his name pop up in a few spots, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, I know who that is. So, but yeah, had to give him a shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
But do you have anything exciting that you would like to talk about? It's been a minute since we've just kind of rambled back and forth before we've gotten into the subject of the show. I know one other thing I'd like to bring up, but is there anything new that you'd like to talk about, Steven?
Well, firstly, I kind of have something that goes hand in hand. I guess can I say it? By the time you're listening to this, I don't know if the video will be up, but I've got a loophole here. So I watched 2 movies, 3, matter of fact, but I won't say which one, and then you can guess. I watched 3 movies this week. 2 of them are going to be related to a video that should be coming out Monday. And so I'm going to leave it up to your imagination to figure out which of these 3 movies the 2 are going to be. I'm sure you could figure it out, but, you know, it's a game, whatever. So I finally watched Orphan First Kill. Kind of impressed by it, honestly. I don't want to say too much about it if you've not seen it, but there was a hard right turn in this movie that there was literally a moment where I had kind of looked down when this moment happened, and I thought I missed a huge chunk of the movie because it was such a shift that I was like, wait, what did I blank? And then I like picked up my remote, backed it up, and I was like, I didn't miss anything. What happened? And then I paid attention because I picked up my phone like a schmuck. It wasn't like it was boring. It was just, you know, you get into a habit. You just pick up your phone when there's a fleeting moment. I don't like doing it, but it happens. I can't help it. We're addicted to these things.
True.
But no, I was pleasantly surprised by it, you know. Not to say that the first one was bad. I was kind of surprised by the first one, but this one surprised me too, you know, with another twist that I just did not see coming because I didn't realize, spoiler alert, she was an adult. That was a twist I was not expecting in the first movie.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, oh, wow. So this one, I don't want to say anything more than how it kind of shifted a little bit and surprised me in that regard. So highly recommend if you want to check that out, especially if you like the first one. Then I wanted to watch one movie and been wanting to watch it. And then I kind of got led to watch another movie because I realized maybe I hadn't seen it. So I watched Sinister, which I don't think I'd ever watched.
Oh, okay.
And I was trying to remember if I had or hadn't, and I really, really thought about it, and I was like, maybe I'm thinking of another movie. So I watched it, and wow, that was a downer, to say the least. I was like, God, all right. So, but still, I was impressed by it. I didn't feel it to be inferior or boring or anything like that. I was like, wow, this is okay. And then conversely, I watched The Black Phone finally. Mm-hmm. And Katrina watched both of these with me. I'll just put that into perspective. Black Phone was the one she really liked a lot more. And I kind of had to agree. I was like, yeah, I did kind of prefer that one, you know, between the two that we watched.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because it had more of a positive ending. But I don't know. I felt like the story, there's a part of me. Have you watched The Black Phone yet?
I've read all about it. I haven't gotten the chance to watch it, so you're not going to spoil anything for me. You're really not.
So I'll just say this for those. I mean, I kind of feel like you get the gist if you watch a trailer. Part of me thought it was just going to be like a story about a boy trying to survive being kidnapped because I didn't really get a lot of details from the trailer. Or I wasn't trying to search for them, I read stuff, I'd seen trailers, but I didn't dig too deep.
Yeah.
Then there's the ghostly element, supernatural. And in some way, I was like, oh, are we going to do that? But at the same time, it does work. And being that it's a Joe Hill story, going supernatural, Shining, whatever you want to say, it makes sense, So I guess after a moment of slight disappointment, I was like, okay, all right, so this is going to be a ghost story type movie. Fair enough, fine. And it didn't detract from it. It just had to shift my expectations a little bit about what the movie was, and it worked. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say, I enjoyed it. So I would recommend that as well. They're both on Peacock if you want to watch. Not a sponsor, but a place to find them.
Yeah.
It's actually a few things on there that I want to check out, so I got to do that.
I've heard pretty positive reviews of Black Phone, and from what I've seen and what I've read, it looks like it's a solid movie. I've always been on the fence with Sinister. I like Sinister, but I kind of have like a love-hate thing for it, and I think part of that is sort of the fact that the whole movie is pretty much just a downer, like you said.
Yeah.
But
it really is. I was trying to find some sort of positive in it, but there really isn't. It's grim.
And speaking of, since you mentioned Peacock, for people out there who don't know, when this new Halloween film comes out, it will be streaming on Peacock when it comes out in the theater as well, so people can watch it on Peacock or go to the movie theater to see it.
I've often wondered how this is working now, because I know they still do the at-home or theater-at-home experience, but I was really surprised to hear that they were going to do that with Halloween, because I feel like a lot of the studios are starting to pull away from that.
Yeah.
Because we all remember what happened when Warner Brothers took that gamble back in 2020, was it? Or 2021? When was it that it was 2021, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and they were just like, everything's going to HBO Max, and if you want to watch it there, you can, but everything's also going to be in theaters, so take your pick. And it's like, obviously, I'm not going out to the theater. You giving me a movie at home, I'm going to watch it at home.
Well, they did they did like an ad with Jamie Lee Curtis where she's like out in the woods and she's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of put it perfectly. She's like, some people want to stay at home and watch movies. Some people want to go to the movie theater and they want to see it on the big screen. She said some people want to do both. Some people want to go see it on the big screen and then watch it at home where they can pick it apart a little bit more and everything. And I thought about that, and she's not wrong.
No, look, I'm not knocking the theater experience, but there are times when you either can't go out and see a movie, or times it's a crunch. It's more convenient to be at home.
Yep.
And I also know that there's an argument to be made where it's just like, well, no one wants to go see little movies in theaters. I just went and saw Clerks 3 in theaters because I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I don't give a damn what anyone says about him. I love his movies. And he even introduced the movie on the screen saying, everybody comes out to the theater for the big Marvel movie, and said, you're coming to see, my little thing. That's not even a fraction of the budget, but hey, here you are. And I said, I appreciate that. Yes, because I'm a fan. I'm going to come out and see his movies. But at the end of the day, there are times I'm just like, I don't want to come to the theater to see this. I want to see this at home and on my time.
How was Clerks 3?
Sad.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but they really tugged on your heartstrings, especially with one thing that I did not expect, but of course I kind of avoided a lot of the, I watched a trailer or two, but I know there were a few other promotional things. I even saw like an interview on IGN, I think it was, and as they got started in the conversation, I was like, I feel like they're going to spoil something, so I turned it off because of the way the conversation was starting to go, and I just got this vibe. And I was like, I don't want to know that. So when the movie got into the movie and this one piece of information was revealed, I was like, oh. And then your brain kind of starts piecing stuff together and it's like, oh, wow. that's rough. So, but it was funny. But just be prepared especially if you're connected or attached to these characters. Yeah, it'll tug at your heartstrings, I think.
I had heard that the premise of the movie, because I had seen what the premise of the movie was somewhere, but I had heard that a lot of the inspiration for it was from when Kevin Smith had his heart attack.
I would say that a lot of the talk about the heart attack, because I feel like I've heard this conversation, but they were telling him, or Randall, because you see that in the trailer, he's the one that has a heart attack, and which is ironic because if you think about it, that was supposed to be who Kevin Smith was wanting to be in the movie. Like, he thought, this is me. Randall is me. Yeah. So everything that kind of happens, you kind of look at through, okay, so if that was Kevin Smith, I got it. But yeah, it's the conversation about, I think, what kind of a heart attack it was, called a widowmaker. Yes. Because 20%, survive. I think a lot of that conversation was directly from the experience he had, having that heart attack and all that. So I honestly feel like that was kind of a smart pull for this story, because it is about them being much older and where they are in their lives. And what do you start to worry about? Your mortality. So that becomes the focal point, and he just pulls from his own experiences what that's like, and here we are. So
yeah, I had heard really positive things about it, and I'm right there with you. I really like Kevin Smith. Even his like off the wall movies, like a lot of people consider Tusk an off the wall movie, and it is an off the wall movie, but apparently it's getting a sequel too. I didn't know if you'd seen that, but
I heard. I was hoping that we'd finally get to see Moose Jaws, this movie he'd been talking about for years. I think after Tusk, and what was the other one? Yoga Hosers. Because I think they all kind of in the same universe or whatever, his
Johnny
secondary.
Johnny Depp is in Yoga Hosers, and he's in part of Tusk, and he's hilarious in it. Oh, yeah. He plays a really crazy detective. I forgot about the movie you just mentioned, though. I'm pretty sure there's a trailer for that out, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I really like Kevin Smith as a creator. I mean, the guy does everything, writes, directs, acts.
Yeah, and I know people call him a hack or whatever for whatever reason. Not your bag. Don't worry about it. You ain't got to knock somebody. I find his stuff entertaining. We are on the same level.
Yeah. So. No, I'll give you that. I'll give you that all day. Speaking of some interesting films and things like that, I have to bring up Mr. Bad Techno. I have to bring up John Brennan again, who we just had on the show and was wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I happened to get on Twitter just yesterday, and I come across he was talking to a skull. He was doing a Shakespearean bit, and he was going, "Where's the bathroom, to pee or not to pee?" And he made out with a skull, and I didn't know that I needed that. Yeah, I didn't know I needed that in the morning. But yeah, apparently I needed that in the morning because I laughed my ass off. Speaking of new movies, and talking about going to the movies and everything, I had just talked about Constantine the other day on one of our previous shows. I had kind of brought up how I really liked their version of the devil. Open up some social media and see a news article. They're finally doing a sequel.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves is coming back to play Constantine again. And I don't know how you feel on the whole Constantine front. I absolutely love the movie.
The first time I watched it was probably right after it came out. I wouldn't say directly in theaters, but, at some point after it reached home video. And, I don't want to knock it. Yeah. It just, I guess whatever experience I had with it was just kind of like, meh. And then I've never returned to it, but I have noticed it's kind of developed this cult following where people really love it. So I may have to just rewatch it at some point and really see if I've got negative, because I've done that before. You watch something at the wrong time, you get this negative vibe with it, and you never want to return to it. I think the very first instance I can remember of that was the movie Good Will Hunting. I remember, I think I was really tired. I was just, working third shifts and just, I don't know what it was. And I thought the movie was terrible. And at some point, for some reason, I returned to it. I thought, let me give this another watch when I can focus on it. And I fell in love with it when I got done with it. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else thinks that way or whatever, but I thought it was pretty awesome. And so, yeah, maybe my perception needs to be changed. If I can watch it a second time and I really still dislike it, then I can say for sure.
Yeah, that's one of those movies. I don't even know what it is about it that I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just Keanu Reeves because I like just about everything I've seen him in. I think he is a really great actor.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of underappreciated in some films that he's in. I mean, but every actor's like that. I'm not gonna be like, oh, we got to give justice just to Keanu Reeves because there's a lot of good actors out there who don't get the appreciation that they deserve. But yeah, if you rewatch it, let me know what you think of it.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to do that because I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a part of me, it might have something to do with that other part, the comic book part of my brain, since I like comic books, and then he's not this true representation of the Constantine I know from the comics. And I know that that's me grandstanding and being one of those people that I don't like, where it's just like, just shut up. People that complain that Ariel, the Little Mermaid, is now black.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Come on, people, grow up. I mean, geez. And then these same people will argue, you don't know the original story. It's like, do you? Here's the actual story written by Hans Christian Andersen. Do you remember the story? No, you don't. You don't know shit about it.
Let's show the people the real version and see what they think after that.
But they'll argue again. Well, that's not how it happened. That's not the Disney version. Well, then clearly you don't. I don't know. It's like arguing with a wall with these people. So never mind.
You see their mouse ears just popping up out of their head.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I hate people like that.
Oh God. Let's see. What were we talking about today?
Final
Girls. Oh God. So hate them or love them, Final Girls are a extremely important part of any franchise. And let's be real, I tend to prefer when you have a female lead in horror films. I think it works.
Yeah.
There's a lot of horror films that do have men as the, main character, and that's completely fine. Mm-hmm. But just something about Final Girl, it sounds great.
It does seem to be more of, I don't want to call it a trope. I guess more of, what's the word I'm looking for here? The nature of it, just it seems right for whatever reason. It
feels more natural.
Yeah, it just something about it. It feels right with a horror film, and not to say that there are not examples where it can be different, but even to a degree, if you look at it through a certain lens, it shows how right it is. And I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but I'm going to use this as an example. Having someone like Jessie from Nightmare on Elm Street 2 be your final girl, if you follow, you see where I'm trying to traverse this?
I see where you're going.
Because people associate it as the queer horror, and he is not a she. So, but
even Mark Patton, who played Jesse, even he will tell you, and there's a whole movie about it. He considers himself a scream queen. And
there you go. See, okay, so I'm to my point. To my point. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's traversing a minefield. I mean no disrespect to anyone. I was just always trying to find the right words to say, pronouns to pronounce, and things and so on. I'm trying. Yes. I really am. I'm not ignorant. I want to do right by everyone.
And sometimes that's hard to do, but at least some people try to do right by everybody. Now, I guess we could sort of get into that realm as well, because you have final girls. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that every final girl is a scream queen.
This is true.
But every scream queen would be considered a final girl to a degree, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, defining a final girl should be fairly easy, because it's just the girl that survives the killer by the end of the film. So what defines a scream queen? That almost feels like we get into a different territory.
I think a scream queen, in my mind, would be someone who has become synonymous with horror in an essence. And also someone who has become almost as iconic as the killer. Because let's be honest, in every horror franchise, people normally think of the killer first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're thinking of Jason, you're thinking of Michael, you're thinking of Leatherface, you're thinking of Freddy, you're thinking of these characters. Scream Queen status goes, yeah, Michael's cool, but what about Laurie?
Yeah.
You know, I think that would put you on the cusp of being a Scream Queen as far as that goes.
I could agree with that.
And something that I had thought about, but I quickly changed my thought process on it. And I guess we could sort of get into this off of what I'm about to say. One of the things I thought was, well, Final Girls and Scream Queens, you know, a Final Girl has to survive at least one movie.
Mm-hmm.
A Scream Queen has to be someone who has survived it all. I thought about that, and then I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't necessarily think that's a true statement for the simple fact I would consider Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street a Scream Queen because she seems to be the one that always got under Freddy's skin the most.
Yeah.
And Nancy dies in part 3. But to me, she's a Scream Queen because when you look at the relationship that she has with Freddy, when you see the dynamic there, there's just something more real, something more sinister to it. And I'm not trying to talk crap about Alice, because Alice does... I would consider Alice a final girl, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But to see her relationship with Freddy, I don't think she pissed Freddy off as much as Nancy did.
Yeah.
Nancy was the original one to be like, I'm not afraid of you. You're nothing. You're shit. I mean, she even says that to him.
Yeah.
And there's just something about that dynamic between those two characters. And maybe it's because Wes Craven pulled it off so well in the first movie, and then it gets pulled off so well again in the third movie, and her death is really meaningful. To me, that puts her at a Scream Queen status. And that's no offense to Alice. I think Alice is a fantastic character. She's one of my favorite characters in that franchise.
Sure.
But when I think of Freddy's arch enemy, I think Nancy. I instantly think Nancy.
I think you're on to something, because I'd never really thought about it until you kind of explained it that way. But yeah, I mean, there is that no fear, no fucks given from Nancy. It's like, bring it on. I don't give a damn who you are. I'm not afraid of you. Come on. You know, like, she's taunting him, picking that fight with Alice. Again, love her, just the same as you. But her transition into it, she's being used as a tool. She's scared. She doesn't know what to do. She eventually does kind of make her stand against Freddy. But there never seemed to be that no fear attitude. You know, his relationship with Alice was using her as a tool. He used her to get to her friends. Then he used her child to get to her friends. So he was more like using her as a vessel to get to everybody.
Yeah.
Despite what she was doing. And I'm not saying she was not fearless, but it's not the same. Like you said, Nancy was just like, there just seemed to be this, I will kill you. You come after me, I will kill you.
Yeah, and Alice, piggybacking off of what you just said, with the way that Freddy was using her, with Alice, it feels like it's just a fight or flight kind of deal. She can't escape it, so she has to fight. She has no choice. By the time that Nightmare 3 rolls around, Nancy is just instantly like, the minute she sees Freddy, it's on to fight. And yes, she's afraid, but she's still just right there fighting.
Yeah.
You know, Freddy becomes the giant snake, and he's pigging out, about to take his first victim. She calls Nancy in. Nancy doesn't even hesitate. Nancy jabs him in the eye with some glass, you know, from the mirror. You know, she's still afraid because she's like, oh my God, and everything else, but Nancy still fights. She goes into the trenches. She pushes on, and she fights Freddy. And I don't know if maybe it's just because that's the way that they had written her in it, that it has more meaning. It sticks with you more, you know, but just something about Nancy. I think it's because she was the first. Sure. I think a lot of that is because she's the first. And in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy only has about 7 minutes or so of full-fledged screen time. It seems like it's more than that, but that's because the way that they had written him in and everything, it just works. But you spend a lot of time with Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
You form a relationship with her, and then she comes back in part 3. And I'll be honest, Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, probably one of my crushes when I was a kid.
I can see that.
In the first movie, she really does just look like an awkward teenager. And then we get into part 3, and Nancy's got legs that I didn't know she had. Everything else, and it's like, okay, I like where this is going. And they even managed to make the character return with New Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
She's Heather Langenkamp in most of New Nightmare, but then she has to accept that she's Nancy. And Wes Craven even has a line in it where he looks at her and he goes, "You have to decide whether or not you're willing to play Nancy one more time."
Mm-hmm.
And to see her take on that persona and forget for a minute that you're watching a movie where this monster that's taking Freddy's form is stalking Heather Langenkamp and not Nancy, like, you have to sit back and you have to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, this is something completely different. But something about Heather Langenkamp, something about Nancy Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
that's who they picked to do this movie. Wes Craven knew that Nancy and Freddy had a dynamic that just worked. And it worked better than any other character. Again, I am not talking crap about Alice. Alice is one of my favorite characters. She has some of my favorite scenes of any movie with Freddy. But to me, it's always been Freddy and Nancy.
Yeah.
Yin and yang. That's what they are to each other. So I would put Nancy up there as one of the most memorable final girls and a scream queen. Would I put Alice at final girl status? Yes, I would. But I don't know if she's necessarily as big of a scream queen as Nancy Thompson.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you on that. It's like you said, it needs to be like an association. For example, and I'm going to try to pull from maybe something we haven't talked about yet. Using your definition, I would kind of say, I feel like this is Sally Hardesty from Texas Chainsaw feels like she should be a scream queen.
Yeah.
She is the first. While she may not be as memorable as someone like Nancy or Laurie, she was or is iconic. Every time they do a narration, her name is brought up. So she is synonymous with that. Unlike, say, would be a good one. Okay, I'm gonna go even farther back than that. Jess Bradford from Black Christmas. It's a lesser known slasher, but it would also be kind of one of those. Along with Sally, she's one of the earlier final girls, if not one of the first between the two of them, just depending on how you want to look at it. But do you think of her? Does that name ever just click?
True.
You know, unless
Very
you
true.
know that movie inside and out, you're going to be like, who, what? I don't, like, you don't hear the name and you automatically know the movie specifically, unless you really know it. When you say Nancy Thompson, if you know that name, you know that franchise like Nightmare. If you hear Laurie Strode, Halloween, Sally Hardesty, Texas Chainsaw. A little bit more on the obscure side, so we're starting to get away. But again, I still feel like she is iconic enough in the franchise because she's been mentioned time and again, and then obviously got brought back in that piece of shit. I don't want to get into that. But point being, I feel like she reaches Scream Queen status. But obviously one of the earliest final girls and one of my favorites. I'll leave it there. But while we're on the topic of big ones, I feel like we could go ahead and get this one out of the way since it's coming up again. Let's talk about Laurie.
Yes.
Let's talk about Laurie, because if there is one that could really personify both, it would have to be her. If there was a number one spot, I kind of feel like it has to be Laurie.
In all honesty, I will agree with you there. I think Laurie has withstood the test of time. Jamie Lee Curtis will even tell you she's played Laurie for what, almost 50 years? Since she was like in her early 20s?
Mm-hmm. And several iterations.
Yes.
Different takes.
And I love how she's even said she will play Laurie as long as she can. She would come back and play her again and again. And congratulations to the Halloween franchise for making Laurie still likable. Like, all these years, all these films, you're still rooting for her. At some point, with a lot of these franchises, I feel like people would just be like, just kill her already. Get it over with.
I mean, I'm going to admit, I've got another name that really definitely fits the bill for, but we'll continue with Laurie for a moment.
But I mean, even her mother was horror royalty, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Her mom was in The Shining.
Shining.
Not The Shining, the Psycho, sorry.
There we go.
I'm getting all over the place today.
Hey, I got you back. Got you back.
You know, she had one of the most iconic scenes in that film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which, but by the way, everybody, Alfred Hitchcock used chocolate syrup as blood. Just going to put that out there.
No.
If nobody knew that before. But, you know, Laurie is definitely the yin to Michael's yang. You can't have Michael Myers without Laurie. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I know that in some of the Halloween films, he went after, I believe she was his niece in the films, who was played by Danielle Harris, who, again, another one I had a crush on when I was a kid. She's still a gorgeous woman.
Oh, yeah.
She's only like 3 foot tall. She's such a tiny little lady. But it just didn't feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jamie Lloyd was the name of his niece. And he chased her in several of the movies. But it always comes back to Laurie. When you see Jamie Lee Curtis up on the screen with Michael, you know it's going to be something good. You know, they could have rebooted the entire series. They could have rebooted everything, started fresh, picked somebody new to play Michael, picked somebody new to play Laurie or whoever. But they knew, the studio itself knew, they said, we need Michael and we need Laurie, but we need Jamie Lee Curtis's version of Laurie. That's how we know it's going to work. That will bring the audience in. So what did they do? They changed the whole franchise around. I consider it a what-if story. I don't consider it like a reboot or anything. I consider it a what-if scenario.
Yeah.
They're movies. You can have different versions and still have the originals. I consider this a what-if. But think about the power. Think about the power of that.
Mm-hmm.
They knew Jamie Lee Curtis was so popular as Laurie that instead of rebooting the film franchise, which they could have done no problem at all. They were like, we need Jamie Lee Curtis. We saw what Rob Zombie did to Halloween. They tried to reboot it. Didn't work. But we can get Jamie Lee Curtis back. We can have Laurie come back. Let's do that and see what happens. And it was a huge success. Right there is proof enough that if you don't think she's a scream queen, you have an issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because there's another thing that you could say defines a scream queen. A character that you don't care how long it's been. If you see them up on the screen with your main villain, you're going to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they could do Michael in a wheelchair, wheeling along, trying to catch Laurie while she's running with her walker.
Mm-hmm.
And not, load Freddy Krueger up with Viagra and send him after Nancy. I mean, it's crazy, but the audience will continue to watch it. So, yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, probably the top tier.
Absolutely.
Probably number one, because she's done it the longest. She's done different iterations, but overall, she has been fighting Michael since she was in her early 20s.
Yeah.
And she's pushing 70 now, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, thinking back on it, there used to be a time, listeners, gather around, if you're under a certain age, there used to be a time where we didn't get our movie news on the regular, like, hamster's drip cage or whatever. We had to wait and find out trailers and see them in the movie theater. So you didn't know about a thing until it showed up. And I was in the theater, and then there was this trailer, and I wasn't sure what it was, and then you see Jamie Lee Curtis slam a door, and her head's just in that, you see it through the window, and then who's on the opposite side? It's Michael Myers. I was like, oh, when I saw that, I got excited, because, I thought she was dead. I didn't know what to think of it. It was just like, oh my, I was excited. That's what he's talking about. You knew who that was, and you saw them face to face, and it was like, oh shit, the rivalry is back. Can you do that with some of the other characters on this list? Some yes, some no. But I feel like that kind of touching on that Scream Queen thing you were talking about, that right there, you know what that means the moment you saw them together.
Yep.
What that connection was, you're like, I got it.
Now, I have to say this real quick. This is not necessarily Scream Queen related, but it still has to do with Halloween. Another thing in Halloween that I could have seen until the end of time, Michael and Dr. Loomis.
Yeah.
Halloween did a fantastic job of making those two synonymous with each other as well. And, you know, the actor that played Dr. Loomis, he passed away back in, I believe it was the 90s.
Yeah, it was right after or before Halloween 6 came out.
Yeah.
So about 95.
But again, maybe Halloween just figured out some kind of formula to make it work, but
Sure.
yeah, him and Jamie Lee Curtis together. If he was still alive and he had even they brought him back for the movie, and they did a wonderful job at it. A lot of people don't know that, but just to see all of that is just iconic, and it's nostalgic. Horror movies can be nostalgic, and people don't realize it. And who knew that horror movies were where you find your strong female leads? Women say that there's not enough strong female characters. Go watch a horror movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, since we've already discussed the big one, we've discussed Jamie Lee Curtis. I've got one that's might fly under some people's radar.
Okay.
And the killer in the movie, they're fairly iconic, but the movie itself is iconic because of what the movie's about. But this is someone who I would consider a final girl. Tree Gelbman from Happy Death Day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a movie that's a little underappreciated sometimes. It's
I wholeheartedly agree.
Hell of a fun movie. Both of them are fantastic, and she makes the movie. I think that fully. And to me, she's not so much synonymous with the killer in the movie, you know, the baby face killer. She's synonymous with the whole movie itself.
Yeah.
Because you expect to see her go and do crazy shit and die in crazy ways and laugh it off. But I would consider her a final girl. Necessarily a Scream Queen. Let's see if they make any more. I think you need to play a character in at least a few films to be Scream Queen status. But I think I would put her on final girl status. She's
definitely on final girl status for me, and I really wish they would make a third to kind of cap that, because they left such a wide door open at the end. It was like, what are you doing? Where are we going? I just want to see it concluded, you know?
Yeah.
You can't leave me hanging like that. It was such a solid entry. Both of them were. I was really impressed. I feel like what almost threw that movie off, and I'm so glad it didn't kill it, is the marketing. Because I remember seeing the very first trailer for Happy Death Day, and my brain didn't know how to process it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what kind of movie I was getting, because I heard the premise and I was like, well, that's stupid. And stupid because I didn't realize it was a joke. Like, it was supposed to be a comedy. I was just getting two different vibes from this, and I was like, you got to meet me halfway, because you're telling me this is a serious horror movie, but you're using this very comedic premise, and I'm so confused. So I feel like the marketing for that first one could have killed it.
And maybe that's why it kind of flew under the radar. Maybe a lot of people looked at it that way, and they were like, I don't know about this movie. And maybe that's part of why it kind of did become I think it became more of a sleeper hit. I mean,
sure.
It took a long time for people to be like, wait a minute, this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. No, I jumped on board with it and watched them both back to back. I even have digital copies of both. So
yeah, no, fantastic film. And yes, I think that I would put her on the final girl list as far as that goes. That one's a little bit more askew. You know, if people out there listening have not watched those films yet, do yourself a favor and find them, watch them. You will enjoy them.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a good laugh at the expense of someone getting murdered, yeah, just go for it, because it's fantastic. Now,
Agreed.
If you want to bring up a final girl, go ahead. I have two that I'm gonna probably rope together.
Okay. So hopefully this will not be one of the two that you're roping together, but I thought I would bring this one up because it's close to one that we were just talking about with Laurie Strode, and that would be Sidney Prescott.
I was going to rope her and Gail together.
Okay, so I wanted to bring her up because she is definitely Scream Queen status.
Yes.
Scream, Sidney, boom. It is the thing. But where she falls short to Laurie Strode, in my eyes, is there's really not a history with the killer, per se. Follow me here. Her history with the original killer was because boyfriend and, his dad's cheating on his mom with her husband, dad, whatever, blah, 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 blah. There's a history there. Okay, fine. Then we start trying to connect histories with the killer. And I guess she does have slight connections up until 5. But they feel, I don't know, a little bit more arbitrary the farther down you go. You know what I mean? Whereas Michael is the one and only sole force after Laurie. So that's 1 and 1. Versus, well, here's another person taking on a killer persona. And here's another person trying to kill you. And another person trying. So it's all she's synonymous with is the ghost face persona, not one person. So it's not a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm trying to go with that. She should be dead by now.
Yes.
I mean, in all fairness, Laurie Strode died twice. If you think about that, how many timelines of Halloween we got? There's a multiverse of Halloween out there, and there's gonna be a movie. I'm gonna make this movie one day. It's gonna be called Halloween Into the Strodiverse, and all the Laurie Strodes are gonna come together, and they're gonna fight all the Michael Myers coming together, and it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a trippy ride, let me tell you.
I'd pay to see it.
But yeah, Sydney, I mean, I like her as a character. I don't hate Sydney at all. And I guess Gail, like you kind of mentioned, she's another one that her clock is ticking. The fact she's not dead, and I've even said this, and I stand by it, she should have been the revealed killer at the end of part 3. It's just my opinion. I know people love her, but man,
would have roped it together.
It's so perfectly because someone has been manipulating from the jump everything, and who would benefit more than Gail?
Yep.
It would have made more sense, and it would have tied it up nice and neat to the point where you're like, oh wow, all this from day 1, holy shit. Because even part 2, if you think about it, still works in that context, because that would have been one of those one-offs. She's like, I had shit to do with this. I got roped into this. So everything, like nothing changes in that movie. Yep. Not a thing. So it would have been so perfect.
I really hope there's some like executive somewhere listening to the show just going, fuck, these guys got some good ideas.
I mean, seriously, it really would have been. Because at that point, everything in Sydney's life is all because of this one person she was pissed at from the jump and had every right to be pissed at.
And in all honesty, even where we're at now, if they revealed somehow that Gail was involved, think about all of the emotional pull that would have, because let's be real, even Dewey got killed. Could you imagine if somehow through everything you found out that Gail was doing all of this to get more book sales, to get more deals, that she would even go to the point where she would kill the man that she supposedly loved?
Yeah.
I mean, it would just, it would be a huge reveal. And it's not like if Gail were to go to all of these people, all these ghost face killers, and be like, you're going to help me kill Sydney.
Yeah. You're
going to help me kill Sydney. And brainwashed all these people. I mean, it would add a whole other layer. And that's where Scream, that's why I kind of roped her, I roped Sydney and Gail together. They were a triple threat, when we still had Dewey.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to the point in Scream, and I think maybe that's what it is if it was one killer, like it is, Michael and Laurie knows Michael's tricks.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what he's going to do. That gives her an advantage. These kids, Sydney and them, yes, it's the ghost face killer, but it's a different killer each time.
Yeah.
Tactics change. Things change. You expect me to believe that these 3 are going to just survive all of this. Like, Scream kind of got to the point for me where it just kind of pissed me off a little bit, because it's like, how much can these people survive?
Yeah, at some point you have to die. That was my biggest rule after part 4. I was like, okay, no one died from the originals in 4. You do another one, someone's got to die. If you're coming back, someone has to die. This is honestly why I'm okay with not seeing Sidney Prescott in the 6th Scream, because in my opinion, her story's done. She's been there, done that. Everything in her tale is done. Let her be. I don't want to see her anymore. Okay? The fact they're even bringing back Gale, character should have been villain in part 3. Part 4 still works because in part 4 and 5, no offense to Courtney Cox, but how important is she to the story?
Yeah.
Think about it. That you couldn't just remove her and you're just bringing her back just to be like, oh, we got to survive again. Okay, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you contributing? Nothing. She was the emotional core behind Dewey's death, I could say, because when you saw her face drop and freak out because he was dead in 5, spoilers. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you've seen it. But you know that was a reaction. You sit there and you saw it, and you're like, "Oh my God, I feel that too." Like you're going along with her on that journey. But what else does she do? You know, I'm not trying to knock the actress. It's the character. What is she doing in these movies? She should have been the killer. That's all I'm saying. The orchestrator of it all, because it still works, and you still had 2 killers at the end of part 3. If you think about it, could have been the director. He could have been her pawn, and then she whips up and she's like, da, 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 "It's me. I did it."
Hell, they could have gone even crazier in 3. Gale could have revealed to be the killer and actually succeeded in killing the other 2.
Yeah,
and then they could have rebooted the whole series.
I mean, come on, there is an opportunity for an alternate Scream out there.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And I'll agree with you there. I think Sydney would definitely be Scream Queen status. I think Gale would be Final Girl status. I don't necessarily think she'd be, because honestly, when I'm thinking Scream, I instantly hear the voice in my head of Ghostface, and I hear him going, "Hello, Sydney."
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I think as soon as it starts. So I would put her on there. You know, this episode kind of feels like it's mirroring our Mount Rushmore episode a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
But obviously we're going to talk about more than just 4. But what about Kirsty Cotton from Hellraiser?
Yeah. I mean, I think while there are a lot of Hellraiser films, I think Kirsty does fit in that pantheon of Scream Queens. I feel like her name is synonymous with Hellraiser, if you know the franchise, because she was in at least 3 of the films.
And she convinced Pinhead to get his humanity back.
Let me rephrase that. She was in 4 of the films. My bad.
Yes, that's correct.
One was a smaller, well, 2 of them were more smaller cameos, but still, point being, she was in 4. I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure I had it correct, but yes.
And she's my favorite.
I like her.
Out of the heroic side of things. I think she's probably more of my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
She's a likable character. In the first one, she's kind of a crybaby. I'd be a crybaby too if I opened the fucking cube and the Cenobites were trying to rip my flesh from my bones. But it sounds awful. Me with Hellraiser, it's like I never have enough to say. But to me, she's just likable.
Mm-hmm.
She's likable, and when I think of Hellraiser, I think about when she finally starts to get brave with what's going on and everything. They were really good about showing her growth as a character, and I think that's what makes her more memorable to me, at least.
Yeah.
So.
No, Kirsty's one of those final girls that I think I knew early on, like Nancy, and there was a connection because she is a very likable person. She's very relatable. You kind of get where she's coming from, and you do. I mean, the fact she walks into the gates of hell head on without any regard, I mean, damn, you know?
Yeah.
How many final girls can say that? It's like, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. I'm going in here.
Right.
And didn't hesitate. I'm sure she took a breath, but she barreled through.
I mean, I would probably do more than just take a breath. So
Yeah.
I'll give her that all day.
She seemed brave enough. She had to face her demons. She got, I mean, literally and figuratively, if you catch what I'm saying there. And then actually was responsible in some way of, I don't want to say killing Pinhead, but kind of, I mean, doing something that kind of led to an odd offshoot. I know Hellraiser 3 can get a bad rap, but you know what? I think I've got some sort of soft spot for it. Maybe because it was one of the earlier ones that I watched.
It's not a bad movie. It's different.
It's different. It's not the Pinhead you want, but it's also kind of a fascinating watch to see in a way. It's like, okay, so now we're trying to turn him into a slasher villain in some way.
It's not the Pinhead we wanted, it's the Pinhead we needed.
Yeah. So it was an odd choice to kind of shift his focus in that way, but it was also kind of entertaining because it was like, okay, well, this is a different take. It's a little off, but let's go with it. Let's see what happens. And they even, I mean, if you think about it, you kind of narratively worked it in, and it seems natural. It's like, okay, well, he's not connected to the one dude anymore, so yeah, he's just a raving lunatic. It works for me.
And in all honesty, if her character was to even have like a slight cameo in the new movie that's coming out on Hulu, I would be cool with it just to see her. Like that to me that puts her on the final girl status. And yeah, I guess you could even say that she could be considered more of a scream queen just for the fact that she went and squared up with Pinhead and all the Cenobites. So I'll give her that. I think I would put her up to that status.
Sure.
But I have one here, sort of. It's a horror movie, but it's a horror movie we don't talk about a lot on here. Ellen Ripley, Alien.
I think we don't talk about it that much because most people might not see it from horror, but I kind of feel like the first one could definitely be considered a horror film.
Yeah.
A sci-fi horror, sure, but a horror film nonetheless, because look at the atmosphere. I mean, is it not a slasher at its core?
Yeah. I mean, even the tagline for the movie, "In space, no one can hear you scream." I mean...
That sounds like a horror tag to me.
Yeah, but I mean, talk about a badass character.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. I mean, Ellen Ripley is probably one of the most badass characters on this entire list.
Definitely an evolved character over time.
And that's the beauty of her character. You know, she spends the entire first movie learning. You know she's resourceful. In the very beginning of the movie, you know she's resourceful. You just don't know how strong of a character she actually is. But through the pacing of the film and everything, we learn more about Ripley. We learn how intelligent she is, how strong she is. And she wins. Mm-hmm. And she spends all these movies telling people, this is what you have to do. But nobody fucking listens to her. Nobody.
Yeah.
But she still manages... She manages to make it out because she does what she's telling these people they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a perfect example of, oh, you're a woman, we don't have to listen to what you say.
Yeah.
And paying the price. But Ripley, I final girl for sure. Scream queen. What do you think?
I would definitely say final girl. Scream queen? I don't know. That's a little difficult for me to kind of assess. You're going to have to give me a second. My brain just took a...
I'm giving you a minute.
Damn. What am I trying to say here? Well, Christ, I've gone blank. Tell me what movie you said it again.
Alien.
Alien. Jesus Christ. Where did my head go?
We will be right back momentarily, Horror Ramblers.
Let me rephrase
Steven's
that.
brain is having an issue real quick.
I spaced for a moment and I went off into no man's land because I was like, what movie are we talking about? I'm sitting here looking at this list and I'm like, what are we talking about? Alien. Okay.
Lori is a scream queen.
Yeah.
Not Lori, Ripley. God,
Ripley.
there I go.
She's definitely a final girl. Ellen Ripley is a final girl. Scream queen. Because, all right, so follow me here. There's an evolution to Ellen Ripley that becoming Scream Queen doesn't seem to fit. You know, with the others, they still have some sort of, I mean, they're badass women and they kick the ass of the bad guys, but she kind of seems like she evolved into an action hero, not a Scream Queen. You know what I'm saying?
I could see that.
So I don't want to take that title away from her because I guess in some essence Scream Queen does fit the bill because she is synonymous with it as we kind of defined it. But I don't know. There's just I can't look at Nancy and Ellen Ripley together and be like, oh yeah, that's the same person.
True.
Or even Lori and Ellen Ripley. It's just there's a disconnect at some point because of who she becomes. In Alien, for certainly. Yeah. But her evolution to who she becomes, I feel like it takes it away. It evolves
She would be in a league of her own.
Yeah. So
look at it this way: if you dropped Nancy or Lori into Alien, I don't think they would make it.
No.
If you dropped Lori into any of their, not Lori, if you dropped Ripley into any of those in any of their movies, she'd be cleaning house.
Yeah. And I mean, even to you know what, I'll give Lori benefit. Older Lori, you know, the one from 2018, the one that's been prepping, she may be able to hold her own with Ellen Ripley.
I could see it. Yeah.
I mean, she got her shit together. So yeah. All right. So that would be a badass thing. There we go. It's the crossover we didn't know we needed. And a xenomorph comes down and infects Michael Myers. And you know how they normally take on the appearance? Well, obviously he's just a man underneath. But this one starts wearing the mask and shit. And so it's like some you bent back, stretched over Michael Myers mask over an alien head. And then it goes around stalking everybody.
I could see it.
And then Ellen Ripley and Laurie Strode have to team up to take down this Michael Myers xenomorph hybrid. So if there's an artist out there, I know that I've been known to draw, but this feels like somebody like Boss Logic or something needs to come up with this, or some real talented.
I could see it now. The xenomorph loses the tip of its tail, so it shoves the fucking kitchen knife in the tail.
Yeah.
Just has Michael Myers' knife.
I mean, come on. Think about this. This would be awesome. And you've got to do the mask a certain way where you can kind of still see the features like the William Shatner, but it's all stretched out and everything.
Could you imagine just somebody sees the Michael Myers mask all stretched and like, what the hell? And the little mouth just pops out.
Oh, God, see? That's perfect. Just like, and it's wearing a little mask too. It's like, come on. Right.
Oh, my God.
So, Halloween Alien. I mean, come on. Halloween or Halloween. I don't know. It's terrible.
Oh God, I need to see this now.
Yeah, I want to see it now too.
Here's a question: Have you ever seen the movie You're Next?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Aaron Harson from You're Next. Would you? What do I even say about this movie? I went in and started watching this movie, and I was like, I know that there's a twist. Somebody told me there was a twist. You find out it's part of the family that's murdering the rest of the family so they can get the money. Guy didn't realize his girlfriend, fiance, whatever you want to call her. It's been a minute, but guy didn't realize his woman was as badass as she was.
Mm-hmm.
And she fucking cleans house.
Yeah.
Cleans house. Final girl status for sure. I would maybe, as crazy as this sounds, I would maybe even consider her a scream queen just because whenever I see her, whenever I see the actress, I instantly think about that movie. I think about You're Next.
Okay.
Every time. There's no way they can do a sequel because she murdered everybody.
Yeah.
It also has one of my favorite scenes in a movie when she breaks off the blender and stabs it into the guy's head and then she turns it on.
Mm-hmm.
And she scrambles his brain. She purees it.
Just what you would do.
Final girl status for sure. I would say, and it's just one damn movie. That's the thing about it's something that I remember so vividly, but it's just one movie, and I remember her character, and they kind of just slapped the backstory that she used to go to this like survival camp, this thing that people thought was like a cult or something. Somebody makes a joke about it, but you find out that she's got all these fucking skills. I would put her on the list. I really think I would.
See, I'll have to debate you on that one just because where you may, in the overall grand scheme of things, defining, she's not, you'd have to be a horror icon or a horror fanatic because that one's a deep cut. So
True.
for within a horror community, I could see, yeah, absolutely, she could be on numerous Scream Queen lists. But for the sake of, if we're talking about a generalized list, I would probably say no.
Okay.
Because she is not as known. I don't feel like her name is a household name like Sydney or Laurie.
True.
So give it time. Maybe she'd come back.
So we could give her final girl at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I see what you mean though, because I'm a huge horror guy. You're a huge horror guy.
Like
that's something that we would look for and we would watch.
Sure. Like this for me, here's a great example of this. We haven't even touched on this franchise, surprisingly, but I do want to touch on it now to kind of make my point.
Okay.
Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Is there a synonymous final girl with Friday the 13th? I would say no, because while you do have final girls, you have multiple. There is not one singular final girl that you can point to and be like, that one. That's the nemesis, the one, that's it. Tommy Jarvis is the nemesis in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
And that's not, no, I'm not saying that a knock to Tommy Jarvis or anything like that, but Alice is the one who took down Mrs. Voorhees, so she has that, final girl status, one of the earlier final girls, but then she's offed. That doesn't take away her final girl status in my book. She survived the first movie. She got it. But she's not overly synonymous with the franchise. People know her. You're a fan of the franchise. You know Alice. Jenny from part 2, I noticed she's gotten a lot of love here lately, which, not to say it's not deserved, but it was just one of those. The second one, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, the very first time I watched it, the more I watched it, it's a movie that grew on me, because there used to be a time I was like, well, this is just like rehashing part 1, but now Jason's a killer and, whatever. It's just the same thing over and over and over. Like, it didn't feel fresh enough. And I'm not saying it is fresh or different than the first one, but there's something about the approach to it, the character of Jenny and her approach to Jason and how she was going to deal with this. It was an interesting approach. I don't think a lot of other characters had done that at the time, but it was a psychological approach. She had sympathy and she used it to her advantage.
Yeah.
But again, one person, then you go, I can't even remember the girl's name from 3.
I can't either.
That shows how memorable. Like, I see her face, and I know the actress, but for some reason her name is slipping my mind, because I even remember she was being creeped on by some guy throughout the entire movie.
Now, see,
Chris.
there is one character who a lot of people might remember as a final girl from Friday the 13th. I was looking at some lists just to look at some final girls, and I think the only reason that this one is memorable, which we will get into, is that she has psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tina Shepard from New Blood. Well, the New Blood. She has psychic powers. I could see people remembering her as like, I remember there was a Friday the 13th, this girl had psychic powers. Like, I could see that conversation happening.
Yeah.
So that kind of, to me, that kind of puts her like a little above maybe some of the other final girls in the films.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, if I had to pick like 2 characters who were really like final girls that I think people would remember the most, probably part 1. Yeah, that chick, she cut Jason's mom's head off. And then there's a psychic girl from the one movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I get where you're coming from. There's not really a main final girl. Friday the 13th, right. Yeah, I would have to say that Tommy is probably the most memorable as far as, Jason's nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would give you that one all day.
Talking about this made me think of something, but I'm gonna hang on to it, because it might be an episode idea. I don't want to throw it away just yet, so we'll discuss it. Anyway, I found that to be interesting, that they don't really have a final girl to pinpoint, unlike some of these other bigger franchises. And, to some degree, they are no different than Sally, but yet I give her Scream Queen status because, like I said, she's always in the intro, or most of the intros for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you're going to hear her name in more than one movie. It's not just like, oh, yeah. So you're always connecting those dots back to her.
Well, and you get to the point, too, I think. A lot of these franchises, they don't want to imitate the other franchises down to a T.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, we have Laurie. And, they did something completely different. Yes, in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we had the one that got away. But then you get into Halloween, where he's trying to clean house. He's trying to take care of that one victim that got away.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what movie you watch, and what you decide to follow, it's either Michael's just trying to get the one victim that survived, or Michael's trying to kill his sister. It depends on where you go in and you watch.
But you know what? That's the beauty of it. You watch whatever version of it you want to watch.
Yeah.
If you like this one, you still got it. Guess what, people? You can pick and choose what to watch. You don't have to just watch this stuff and be angry about it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to watch the freaking MCU movies ever, or not MCU, the DC movie. I know that's not horror, but follow me here, okay? If I don't want to watch Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman, damn it, I don't have to.
Yep.
Right? I don't have to be mad about it. I don't like it, but I don't have to tell you about it. I'm telling you about it now, but follow me here. I'm trying to make examples.
Here's a question.
Okay.
She's one of the villains, but I would sort of consider her a scream queen. Let's talk about Tiffany from Child's Play.
Okay.
And Chucky and all that. I would consider her a scream queen,
Mm-hmm.
I think. She's iconic. If you don't know who Jennifer Tilly is, what are you doing with your life?
Mm-hmm.
She's in her 60s, and she is still fine as fine can be.
Never know it.
Jennifer Tilly walked so that cute goth girls everywhere could run. Just telling you, people.
Yeah.
But I think I would consider her a scream queen. I don't know how you feel on that.
Well, that
Kind of an interesting take, isn't it?
yeah, because it changes the definition of what a scream queen could be. Because in some aspects, she has been the antithesis of Chucky, where they're fighting one another. They've killed one another, or attempted to in some point. So she does kind of have this unloyalty to him that still even boils over to the series. So it's an odd relationship. She could be a hero if she wanted to, but she chooses to be a little out there.
She's synonymous. That's the big thing that kind of brought me to it.
So unlike someone like Nika Pierce, who would definitely be a final girl at this point, but I don't think she is quite as synonymous with the franchise like someone like Andy or Tiffany. I feel like she has the opportunity to be, but she hasn't quite reached that yet. And I hate to say that, but I'm going to have to say it has to be because of the straight to video status of the movies in which she was in and then the television show. She'll definitely be a cult scream queen.
Yes.
If we'll put it kind of like that.
I'll give you that one, yeah. And she's just a fantastic character anyway.
Oh, yeah. I forgot where they ended her arc at season 1. And when we got back to that, I was like, oh, shit. I forgot about this. And Katrina actually put it very perfectly. She said that Nika is the most tragic final girl ever, in her opinion.
I can believe that.
At this point, I'm kind of like, yeah. I mean, she's had it so much worse than Andy. And in all honesty, if you kind of compare her to other final girls, where she's at now, I mean, could you still consider her a final girl? Because she's never quite really escaped it all.
True. Very true.
So, I mean, yeah, she survived, but she's also been roped into it again and again. She's still there. I don't know. That's a tricky one, too. I mean, still, I would say, yeah, she's still a final girl. She earned it at some point. It's just, damn, she's. I want to know where her story goes from here, honestly.
And the whole Tiffany debate has me thinking there could be some big differences between a final girl and a scream queen. Because to be a scream queen, you don't necessarily have to be a hero. To be a final girl, I think you would have to be a hero.
This is true.
I do have 2 more final girls that I would like to just bring up. They're from 2 movies that are kind of big, but they're not big, if that makes sense. They've got a good following. Let's talk about Midsommar.
Okay.
And we Danny Arter.
Okay.
Sort of becomes part of this crazy community at the end of the film. She does survive the film. Her psyche's broken, obviously. What's that syndrome called where you get kidnapped? She basically becomes a sufferer of that syndrome, I would say. You know what I'm talking about?
Damn it, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. God damn it. My brain's sitting there going, Parkinson's syndrome. And I'm like, no. I don't even know why that. Jesus.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yes.
That's what matters.
God.
Somebody on Twitter is going to be like, hey, I know what that is.
Dava, help us out.
Tell us what it is, man. But, oh, man. I would consider her a final girl. Not a scream queen. That movie's not iconic enough yet to where I think I would consider her something like that. But I would definitely consider her a final girl.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can agree with that. Scream Queen, not quite. Not quite,
Yeah.
but definitely a final girl. Did she survive? Kinda?
Yes,
Yeah.
she did. She basically became part of their
Oh, yeah.
community at the end. She's got like all they put like a flower dress and hat and everything on her.
Stockholm Syndrome.
There it is. Stockholm Syndrome.
I don't
There
know
it
why I
is,
said
people.
Parkinson Syndrome, you know? See, I was digging for a name. It's like Park, Sin, Star, what? Stockholm. There we go. Sorry, David. I'm sure you already shouted it by now, but there you go.
You're still thinking of that xenomorph Michael Myers, aren't you?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's such a great idea. I want to see this movie.
I know, it would be fantastic. And then the other one that I want to name real quick, Maddie Young from the movie Hush. I don't know if you've seen Hush. It's on Netflix.
I have seen things about it, but I think that's one of those that came out at a time where it just kind of skated by me, kind of like Sinister. I thought I'd watch that, and I guess I hadn't. So this was probably around that same time, and it just
If you get the opportunity to watch it on Netflix, I think you would really enjoy it. She is a deaf author, and she's working on her book when a killer comes to her house. Mm-hmm. She's locked in so that he can't get to her. But just to kind of put it into perspective of what kind of film it is, they actually play off the fact that she's deaf. You see that happen in the film.
Mm-hmm.
She actually uses it to her advantage, which a lot of people listening right now are like, how does she use that to her advantage? Trust me, there's a scene where she uses it to her advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But the killer also uses the fact that she's deaf to his advantage.
Right.
But it is a fantastic film, and she's an extremely resourceful character. And I would not give her Scream Queen again. I don't think the film's iconic enough, but she is definitely a final girl. She proves it in the film through her ability to adapt and survive.
Yeah.
And you think she's at a disadvantage, obviously, because she's deaf, but she proves that completely wrong. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely shout that out. I do have somebody else I'm thinking about shouting out, but I'm gonna let if you have anything real quick that you want to put out there, I'll wait a minute.
No, I think I've touched on a lot of the ones that I wanted to talk about. I can't think of anybody right offhand that jumps out at me.
Yeah, I think more horror movies need to come out.
Yeah, I mean I'm probably forgetting somebody.
I can imagine that I am too. And while we've been recording, I've kind of looked at some different lists and everything, just to sort of see where the people that we talk about are stacking up. And every list does not matter. Every list has Laurie at the top of it.
Okay, so I think we hit that.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. Nancy's normally in the top 5. A lot of the lists I've been seeing, Sydney has been number 2. I don't know if I would put her there. I would put her in the top 5 probably.
Yeah.
At least the top 5.
Sure.
But if you don't have anybody, then I'm gonna shout this person out. They're not a final girl, but they are a Scream Queen, and that's Mark Patton. I just have to put Mark Patton out there. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is extremely underappreciated. It really messed with Mark's career. Mm-hmm. But Mark Patton is an extremely talented actor, an extremely sweet human being. And if you haven't gotten the chance to watch Scream Queen, it is on Shudder. Mm-hmm. You can watch it there. It's a fantastic film that talks about the most queer horror movie of all time. That is what they consider Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's got a lot of undertones and everything else. I know it as the movie that clearly does not have Robert Englund in part of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. And it's overall, it gave us the scariest version of Freddy that I think we ever really got. Mm-hmm. He is a monster in that movie. Monster. But yeah, Mark Patton, Scream Queen. Mm-hmm. He has become synonymous with that movie, that one movie, with Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So I'm going to say it again. There's one of our top Scream Queens on my list anyways.
Oh, yeah. I would wholeheartedly agree.
So all the ramblers out there, do yourself a favor. Watch some films about Scream Queens. Watch you some Final Girl stuff. Let us know what you guys think makes a Scream Queen. makes a final girl. Let us know who your favorite final girl or scream queen is. We want to hear it, guys.
For sure.
But other than that, Steven, if you want to tell the people where to find us, because I think the audience knows, because I've already done it one time and it did not go very well. You are definitely better at letting them know where to find us. So if you want to go ahead and do that, be my guest.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you're still sober, because, less, if you're playing along at home, he mentioned, he even had to end it with Nightmare on Elm Street. So you're all hammered right now if you've been playing along at home.
Robert Englund, have another one.
But if not, then let us know how you felt about our topic this week. If you think that there was a final girl that we overlooked, there's a scream queen we overlooked, let us know on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. Say, hey, what about this person? I'm sure we may have seen their name, or maybe we just forgot. We're absent-minded. I'm absent-minded. I'm getting old. If you've got more to say, and a tweet's just not going to cut it, if you want to cuss us out randomly, or if you want to send us this comprehensive list of scream queens and final girls, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you love social media groups, you can follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. You can even find us on Discord to see an assortment of horror images when we decide to post. And if you Discord, you can join us on Discord in the Horror Ramblers room, and we can discuss horror stuff. So if you want to do that, I'll put a link down below. You can follow that and join us. If you don't want to, it's fine. If you're feeling generous, you want to show support to the show financially, head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions to chuck in a buck and help this and other shows like it grow. If you want to say nice things about the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us that beautiful 5-star review, get to express your feelings, help the show grow, and you can do the very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined, and can answer those questions in polls. I'm going to ask you this week, who's your favorite scream queen or final girl? Or if I had a poll, I'd put the yes or no, like put all the percentage. I could probably do that. That's going to take a while. Might do 5. I'll figure it out. Anyway, it's all appreciated, but most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search Horror Ramblings on the preferred podcasting platform. We should be everywhere by now. If nothing else, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.